Good afternoon. I'm Chair Bobbitt Mays, and I would like to welcome you to the January 24th, 2022 Neighborhood Advisory Committee virtual meeting. We will now call our meeting to order. The committee consists of 9 members, all appointed by the City Council with representation from specific community sectors. Members shall be residents of the city or city's extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction and shall reflect the socio-economic diversity of Asheville. The term of office is 3 years. The committee was established to advise the City Council on neighborhoods within the City of Asheville's zoning and planning jurisdiction. The committee shall have the following powers and duties: develop rules and bylaws for the conduct of its business, including but not limited to meeting schedules, officers, voting, subcommittees. Number two, develop a plan to strengthen neighborhood identity and resilience and to facilitate communication and cooperation between Asheville neighborhoods and city offices. Number three, develop benchmarks and standards by which progress towards implementing the plan can be measured. And number four, work on specific projects that are consistent with the goals of the committee as assigned or directed by the City Council. All committee members and staff are participating virtually. We appreciate your patience as we work through committee meetings a bit differently. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone by dialing 855 925 2801 and entering meeting code 9247. I'll repeat that: 855 925 2801 and entering meeting code 9247. For those of you who plan to speak during our live public comment today, you will need to hit *3 to be put into the speaker queue. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. I will go through and introduce all the committee members and staff who are participating virtually. For our committee members, please make sure to mute your microphones if you are not speaking. When you have a question and would like to speak, click raise hand, and when recognized by the chair, unmute your microphone. Please remember to mute your phone after you have done speaking. Committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. See list of members provided in the meeting materials. Greta Bush,
Hi, my name is Greta. I live in East Asheville and I'm an at-large member.
JP Sharaka,
Hi, this is JP. I'm in 28801.
Mike Wassner,
Hi, my name is Mike Wasmer. I live in the South French Broad neighborhood, north end to south side, as I would call it, but I'm an at-large member.
Wendy Hayner,
Good evening, I'm Wendy Hayner. I live in 28804.
Peter Abzul,
I'm Peter Ramsey. I am also an at-large member, and I live in 28805.
Sharon Summerall,
Hi, I'm Sharon Summerall. I'm in 28805.
and Elizabeth Lycus Worley.
Hello, everybody. I'm an at-large member and I live in 28803.
Next City Council liaison is Kim Roney, who will not be able to attend tonight, but has confirmed she will review the stream of tonight's meeting. Also in attendance are our city and Buncombe County staff members: Dawa Hitch, Communication and Public Engagement Department Director. Dawa is filling in for the vacant position of Neighborhood and Community Engagement Manager. Vadilla Sadvika, City of Asheville Planner in the Planning and Urban Design Department. To help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud. Again, I ask committee members to click raise hand and be recognized to speak. Please state your name each time you comment. Just a reminder that the public is listening on the phone, and this keeps them up to date on the order of the meeting and who is commenting or speaking. Additionally, I have asked, and Sharon Samra has volunteered to be our signal when the discussion time is running out. The first order will be the approval of the minutes for November the 29th, 2021. I need to get a motion on the floor to accept those minutes.
This is Wendy Hayner. I would like to make a motion to approve the November 29th meeting minutes.
Can I get a second?
I have a comment on that. With the revisions I sent through on open space, and on the minutes, it has action comments that I resent through that I didn't believe were correct. Is that addressed in this, the minutes? They need amending.
So I would say that we would have a motion on the floor and we would need a second. And then your question would be, let's do it that way. Can I get a second on the motion to accept the minutes as you have already reviewed? And then we'll go from there. Can I get a second?
I'm not seconding, but I'm sorry. I thought we had to correct the minutes before we could approve them.
We're not approving them. We're just getting a second on what she said. And when we ask for a question, then the question would override whatever the motion and the second would be, and we would do it again.
Oh,
That's the procedure. So
sorry.
I'm just
Okay, I
saying,
second
yeah,
Sharon's comment then.
you can second the motion that was made. And now I'm going to ask, is there a question? Sharon has a question.
Yes, I do. Thank you. The action item wasn't exactly as stated in my emails that I send individually to everyone. And I'm not sure whether that needs to be addressed to the correct motion in the minutes or whether that's added on. I don't know the procedure on this, Bobette. So, but I'm not sure if we approve the minutes, if we're approving this motion action that was from the previous minutes.
So what is it that you're not, that you have a question about in the minutes?
Yeah,
was
it's
not
in the
addressed?
action statement, accept the following act position on open space ordinance amendment. And we have not come to an agreement, therefore NAC rejects. And then there is a statement behind that on, well, I printed it on page 2 that, and when I sent my email, this is not what was stated in the minutes and this is not what we approved. So with your okay, I sent emails to everyone after reviewing a video of what was on there. And I'm wanting to have verbatim what we voted on at the minutes and not this iteration of it.
So I'm trying to, Darryl, you might need to help out with
Sure.
that, but I'm
Sure.
thinking, go ahead.
So one thing we could postpone the adoption of the minutes. That's one action that the committee could take. And I can share with you the transcripts from that meeting that I took to put in the motion. So I went back and listened to the meeting and looked at the transcripts from the meeting to try to capture the exact language straight from the video. So if the committee would like to see what those were, then we could move adoption of those minutes to the next meeting so that there's enough time for everybody to review them.
So we would need a motion to, how would I say, that we would not approve the minutes at this time and until we can review, and it'll be a continuance on the next meeting. Would that be what we would say? Okay, Wendy, I see your hand.
Would you prefer, Bobette, for me to withdraw the motion?
Yeah, because we've not voted on it.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll just withdraw that. But will we need another motion, Darwood, that we would not
No,
approve the
I don't.
minutes?
No,
would just leave it
would just
alone?
be left open and we
Okay.
would move it on to unfinished business for the next
It's-
agenda item,
Okay, all right.
or for the next meeting.
Okay, so can we go down and let's review? You can just kind of review today's agenda. If you'll see what we'll have: public comments, staff activities and updates, unfinished business with open spaces, new business, NAC member updates, and agenda items for the next meeting and the next regular minute. All right. So it looks like that we have no comments were submitted either by voicemail or email for tonight's meeting. Is
That's
that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Staff activities and updates by Dower Hitch.
All right, so I will jump right in. These will be brief, but did want to give everybody, so I am filling in tonight for our vacant position, and that being the Neighborhood and Community Engagement Manager. I think everybody knows that Jeremy Lett, who is filling in an interim basis, took a job with another organization, and we are in the process of filling that position. So it was posted at the end of December, and we had a number of applications come in, and I just got those last week and reviewing those, and we'll be setting interviews with the candidates here shortly. So just wanted to let you all know that we are moving forward with filling that position, and once we get that position filled, that position will hire the neighborhood specialist. So we're working to get back up to speed with the full staff, and I really just appreciate everybody's patience with us. And I want you all to know that we are working hard to keep everything going, including our neighborhood grants program. Before I launch into that, just want to give us a second if anybody has any questions about filling that position. Seeing none, I will move on to our update about our neighborhood grants process. So that was another key project we wanted to make sure we kept going. And I'm pleased to say that we have had some support from the finance department through the person in that department that manages partnership agreements. His name is Tom Downing, and he was side by side with Jeremy as Jeremy kicked off the neighborhood grants process. So he has kindly stepped in to make sure that we're continuing those meetings with the people who were awarded the grants, to make sure that we get all of their paperwork, their agreements, and the scope of the work, and the process for applying for and getting reimbursements or payment ahead of the project, if that's the plan that the neighborhood is going to follow. So we've reached back out to everybody, let them know that's our transition plan, and just wanted to keep you all updated. And I'm hopeful by the end of the week that we'll be sharing all of the neighborhoods who received the grant and then publishing that out for our whole community. But certainly you all will receive an update on just who those neighborhoods were first.
Oh, thank you, Dower. Are there any questions? Anybody have any questions or comments as we move on? Now we'll go to the unfinished business. Open spaces update presented by, I'm hoping I say your name right, Vadilla Saveska.
Not bad. Vadilla
Okay.
Savika. Thank
I'm
you,
working
Ms.
on it.
Meese. I'm going to share my screen. And I just wanted to talk through a few, well, I have 8 slides here, I believe, to follow up on our conversation with open space. I don't know if you have had a chance, members of NAC, to see on our website, we've included a video that allows you to see, I sort of talk through a longer presentation to try to simplify what this proposed zoning amendment really is. So I'm not sure if you've seen that, but I'm showing you the link here. It's asheville.nc.gov/open space. You or others who might be interested can go to that website to take a look. I'm not proposing to go through that that information in detail because I think you all know to some extent what this is about. I'll just kind of pull out a couple of highlights. That one, we're talking about open spaces on private property primarily. These are not, we're not talking about regulations for park spaces or greenway spaces. Well, they could be greenways if they're on or a proposed greenway going through a piece of private property. But this isn't about how the code should improve public open spaces. Many of these spaces are private by nature. They are, an apartment complex that has open space for their residents. It may be a business that has open space for their customers. It may be a subdivision of homes that has open space for the residents of that subdivision. I just wanted to clarify that because it seems like sometimes that can be muddied and not quite clear. For those who are new to this, this slide just calls out some of the proposed outcomes that the ordinance is aiming for. One is to implement our comprehensive plan, the strategies that are looking at the need for more housing in Asheville, primarily by reducing barriers to infill development. Another is improving the quality and accessibility of open spaces. Today, the way our code is written, that we're getting open spaces that aren't great for the users of those open spaces. They may be on a sloping terrain that isn't quite great for walking. Another is to clarify and simplify development regulations so that they're easier to understand for both development and the public and those who are tasked with managing, so our plan reviewers. We're also proposing to incentivize better stormwater management. That's a key part of this, especially for larger projects. To strengthen the open space protections in the River Arts District. And an exciting result of this effort has been separate standards that we're updating, but updates that came from this open space task force to improve tree planting additions citywide. I don't want to spend a lot of time, but that's something that you will see coming in the near future. So I wanted to focus on these three statements that were in the notes, and I see that Sharon suggested that maybe those need to be corrected. That's what I had to work on. This is the letter that we received as staff to the city for the concerns that NAC has, and I want to read those, and then I have a few slides to talk through them. And this is a discussion, so your ideas are welcome. The comments that we received from NAC were: one, the city needs to solicit input from members of neighborhoods through educational and listening sessions. Number two, NAC wants to see Asheville as a leader in open space and is disheartened to see the proposal to lower minimums to the state's status quo. While lowering requirements from 50% may be seen as necessary, we recommend not going as low as 5 to 15%. And then the third point, which is actually a multi-point statement, the NAC is concerned about how the proposed amendments may impact affordable housing, stormwater management, tree canopy loss, and associated negative externalities, such as wildlife habitat impacts, heat island impacts, and noise impacts, and buffers. And buffers have to do with, this is property line buffers. We have some standards for those who aren't really knowledgeable about our development standards. Certain projects have to create a planted landscape buffer between their property and the neighboring residential property that may be affected. So I'm just going to have a few slides here to talk through these points to guide our discussion. So the first one is the request that the city should solicit public input. And I just wanted to highlight that we may and we can solicit additional input through like a public survey, for example. I just wanted to highlight that to date, and this work that we're doing has been kind of moving along for about 3 years now. We've got our input, one, from the guidance of the comprehensive plan and the robust public input that occurred as part of that 2-year effort. And second, that we created this open space task force that included representatives from 8 different voluntary boards and commissions who took part in 9 months of working back and forth through a consensus-based decision-making process. So there was a lot of input, but we can look for more. The second point that NAC states that you want to see Asheville as a leader in open space, and we agree with you. We believe that regulations for these private open spaces need to be improved and that Asheville should be a leader. And so I want to clarify how we are proposing to lead. First is that the private open spaces as required by the UDO, they need to be better for people to socialize, and we are incentivizing open spaces to be on flatter grounds so that, and to provide seating so that they are actually public spaces that can work. It's been demonstrated over and over, especially that the elderly need a place to sit to take part in enjoying open spaces. The second point, that private open spaces should be provided for commercial projects. In Asheville, even though most cities in North Carolina do not require open space for projects and for commercial properties, we think it makes sense because in commercial areas, you have, even if it's not open to the public, you may have places that have lots of workers that may benefit from having a place to go outside to enjoy their lunch for their lunch break. So we are setting that standard and being a leader in that regard. And then finally, the current minimum open space under our current regulations allows residential and commercial projects to go down to 5% open space. This is again for private properties. And we're not proposing to go below that because we think that's a fairly accepted standard that we see in other cities throughout the state. So we are not proposing to cut below those standards. And then the third point, and again, this is a four-part statement from NAC about first, affordable housing, that our proposal will certainly help to allow for more infill development to occur because currently open space, the way it's written, is an incredible hamstringing. It makes it impossible to really do infill development on small projects. One point I want to highlight is that there is some empirical evidence showing that new housing frees up more affordable housing through what's called moving chains, where people from one type of housing move to new housing and it frees up more affordable housing. We're actually looking to get some research students to try to conduct this research here in Asheville, and that's pending and hopefully something we can share if this moves forward in a year or so. But definitely housing is important and a key element in this proposal. The second is that the proposed code is certainly going to improve stormwater conditions on projects over an acre, and that is more than 60% of land in Asheville. So it's a very creative approach that we're taking. What we're saying is that certain large projects, they have this incentive that they have to provide a lot more open space, but they don't have to provide that open space if they provide stormwater. The question about trees is important, and I want to clarify to all of you that the trees that are required as part of the tree canopy preservation ordinance do not conflict with the open space standards. You can have those trees within open space, but you don't have to have them. We're just saying that open spaces aren't required to have trees. Some people in their designs of spaces want to create an open grassy area for people to hang out. Others don't. Others want to include trees. So it's an option. And the question about buffers, I just want to highlight that the Open Space Task Force agreed that buffers should be allowed to be counted as open space as long as they're not too hilly and that they provide pedestrian access. So again, the task force believed that was the best decision, and that's why that decision moved forward. A couple other slides and I'm done, and then we can open up for discussion. An important point about housing that I want to call out here, I think this is really important to understand, is that the current regulations do not necessarily create more open space, and they actually tend to have fewer, more expensive units. What you see on the left is a recent proposal for in the Montfort area that a developer wanted to build 2 buildings, each one with 11 units in them. And to do that, they would have to provide that orange area equivalent in open space. 43% of this parcel would have to be made open space, which is very prohibitive. They basically wouldn't have been able to do a parking area for these units. Now, in this area, it could work out because parking isn't required. But what we're seeing is that they could build the image on the right, instead 4 units in each building in order to keep their unit count down, and then they only have to provide 15% open space. So what current regulations and regulations that require a lot more open space to be required as part of development is it just makes or can lead to a developer choosing to build fewer units in order to avoid those higher open space standards. So what the city gets, you on the ground, you might see the same thing. You might see 2 buildings, both 4 stories, but one of them, the one on the right, only has 1 unit in each building, in each floor, and they're much more expensive units. So what we're proposing under the current code is to allow for more infill so that we can get those smaller units that tend to be more affordable. So that's sort of a key point that sometimes is lost. Okay, I'm just about done here. Thank you for your patience. So this is a summary. I think you might have seen this before, but I wanted to highlight it again, of the difference between the current and the proposed regulations. And you can see there's not a huge difference, except that on the residential side, primarily, we're tiering the requirements so that there's less required, especially on smaller projects that have typically smaller lots and have to strain with a lot of site constraints, like in trying to fit in the parking, the landscaping, the actual buildings, and all into a very small space. So that's really what I wanted to just sort of talk through briefly. And I wanted to highlight where we're going, that the City Council is proposing to review open space in a work session just targeted to open space. And this is open to the public, of course, to watch, so that you can hear the issues, and we'll have a lot of time to get into the nuance, because this can be confusing. And so that'll be something to listen out for, and it'll be recorded, of course, so you can come back for it. And that gives time for NAC, for those at least who are interested, who want to provide any other questions or concerns, that you have time if you want to come back if you're interested. And then we would likely move forward to planning and zoning review sometime in the spring. So that's all I have, and I'll open it up to any questions. Thank you very much.
Sharon Summerall, you have your hand up.
Yes, I do. First, I want to clarify that what was posted is not what we voted on at NAC. What I'm in disagreement with is just it's a typo error that DAWA didn't add not. We recommend going as low as 5 to 15%, and all that it has to be is not. And that's all I needed with that. So this is what we voted on. And I'm not going to belabor this point, but what I want to say is that SACE and UFC are not in agreement with the open space amendment. There was many of us stakeholders on this. And when he's talking about the buffers, there were other developers and builders that were voted for this. And if there was a consensus of more people wanting this than not, then the environmental side of things, we just didn't win. All of us that were on the environmental side. And I'm going to go over this real quick because we don't have time. But on recreational space, for every 250 square feet of a recreational seating, you're given open space. Balconies are given open space credits. The setbacks, that everything is required on a setback right now, is given credit for open space. So that means that what is required in the ordinance now for open space, you also double credit, and you get credit for open space on the setback buffers that are required. Instead of asking for additional open space on top of the buffers that affect us in neighborhoods are solely can be used for open space. So, and the affordable housing clause is ambiguous. The term as it's currently written just says below 80% AMI for 30 years. And it needs to be tightened up. The fee and lieu provisions. So what I want to say is open space needs to be reworked, but it needs to be reworked with more people involved, the neighborhoods involved, and more public input. All of us that are involved in the neighborhoods and the green infrastructure are say fine that other cities are reduced down to 5%. Asheville should be a leader. The less open space you have, the less place you have for green and trees. So that is just common knowledge. There were some things that came through this that were a bonus and that did work out, but by and large, this is going to impact neighborhoods greatly. And it is complicated and it needs to be better written than what it is now for most of us that have been on this. Well, I'd say a few of us members that attended this were concerned. So, and that's my opinion. And I really, unless Vadilla, I'm tired of debating this with you, Vadilla. I really am. It's like, it just goes back and forth, back and forth. Unless you can publicly state that something I misstated is incorrect. I've been debating this with you for 3 years. And I think it's a very, very detrimental to this city.
Vadilla, I see your hand.
Thank
And
you.
then Greta.
I don't think it's appropriate in this venue to go through the laundry list that you mentioned. There are many points in open space and in any ordinance, and we can talk through them. I just want to highlight, well, one thing was that you mentioned that SACI is against this and that they have not voted against this. I want to highlight that we met for 9 months as a task force. I want the commission to think about this, because this was an important point that took a lot of staff time and a lot of time from volunteers. And we agreed to a consensus-based decision-making process that really was challenging. A couple times we had to meet separately to work out issues, and I think ultimately we came to a better decision. And I think it's unfortunate that a couple people walked away from the commitment to stand by the results of this consensus-based decision-making process. And ultimately, we can talk about individual details, and we are open to talking about that, but it can be really confusing to try to throw out and go through many of them in a meeting where you have many things on the agenda. So we're open to, and I want to help to clarify any issue for your members. So I would suggest the video that we created is a good starting point. And for anybody who is interested in the specifics, you could call me or we can talk them through. But it probably isn't going to be helpful to go through them, kind of tit for tat on a forum like this. Maybe with the last thought, maybe with the council work session, we will get into some of these details. So I think you all can tune in and see some of the hard questions that may come to us.
Greta Bush.
Hi, this is Greta. Vadilla, I just wanted to make a comment about your comment about doing a survey. I think that's great that you're open to that. My preference would probably be more of like an info session. The first time you explained this to us, it was like a lot to digest when it was the first time I had seen it. So I think the public might need a little bit more opportunity for Q&A. So my preference would be just something more like that. That's like a presentation where people are able to ask questions. and maybe even access the materials ahead of time so they can read them. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, Elizabeth Worley.
Yes. Hi. This is Elizabeth. I second sort of what Greta was just saying about the first time when you made the presentation. I had no idea what was really going on as a new member of this group and to any Asheville board, but I'm just sort of now going back and listening to the talking points you made. I have a couple of questions and thoughts because I'm not sure I quite understand the point you were making. And I assume this is the right time to do that. I know it's been debated before. So when you had the graph up of the 43% open space versus with the red X and then the proposed at 15%, make sure I understand this correctly. Did you say that parking lots are not required for these buildings?
Vadilla, you're muted.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to go back to the slide so that everybody can see what we're talking about. So in this particular district, off-street parking for residential projects is not required, right? So sometimes you'll get a standard that isn't required, but the developer still wants to provide it because they know most people drive, right? So even if in parts of the city where we don't require parking, usually at least some parking is provided because they know customers come with cars. Closer to the CBD, sometimes they have less of that. And this is closer to the CBD. But what I was highlighting here is that the way that open space is currently written, it severely hamstrings projects because it requires so much open space. I think the way that the code was written was erroneous. I don't think it was intended to be this high, because when you work through the examples, you can see that many historic properties that we look at now and can appreciate would not be able to be built. And I can show you some other examples.
I think, yeah, okay. So I was looking at these and honestly, when I saw this, it was working against the point I think you were trying to make, because what I see is if developers are coming in, and we have not had any shortage of development in Asheville, living in a neighborhood where 13 new houses popped up in the last 2 years and took up every space that I could walk my dog. If we're looking at this and they're like, oh, I don't want to create that open space, I'll go elsewhere, I think I'm fine with that. But when I see the one on the right, I see if they're only able to build, you were sort of using this as a selling point. And again, I'm a little confused that they would build 4 units instead of 11. And then you said something about them possibly being more affordable. But if a developer purchases a parcel of land and can only put 8 units total instead of 22, they're going to logically probably charge more. So I see in a parking lot, which is probably not going to be an impervious surface if it's not required, and more expensive units. So that was just one thought. I'm looking at this going, actually, that doesn't seem like an improvement from my stance.
Maybe I wasn't clear, and I'm sorry if that was the case. You're right. What I was trying to say is that the way the current standards are written, you could get a project that looks the same. The one on the left has 2 buildings that may be 4 stories each. The one on the right would have 2 buildings and 4 stories each. The difference is that a developer is incentivized to do the one with fewer units in order to be able to have their parking and to not have to provide so much open space. So you're right, they will build less units and they will be more expensive units. And so if we want to encourage a greater variety of housing, we need to be able to allow, like the 22 units you see on the left, in some cases where you have better conditions for walking, like this is closer to downtown, such that they're not required to provide so much open space. And this is what we're proposing, that the open space is tiered, and it's different than what's currently required, so that you can basically have the amount of open space that's shown on the right while providing 22 housing units.
Okay, so the actual what you're describing would be a third diagram. I think that's where I was getting confused.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
right. Yeah, I guess the X and the green check mark what I was trying to say, and I didn't do a good job of it, was on the left, we're not getting what's on the left because they aren't willing to incorporate that much open space. And it's leading to development that is more like what's on the right, which is fewer units, more expensive units.
Mhm. And one more quick question about one of those, when you were talking about the trees, the tree canopy was one of the concerns of NAC. And I don't know, you may just be able to answer that quickly. Is there any requirement for if a developer comes in and clears trees, then they have to replant an equal amount of trees?
So this is, now we're getting into the tree canopy preservation ordinance, which is separate.
Okay.
But I can tell you briefly, yes, every project that meets the requirements for that type of a certain type of development needs to provide trees. If you decide to cut all your trees down, you have to provide more trees, and that area is protected in perpetuity. So there is an incentive for preserving trees. Now, you can do that in your open space, but you don't have to.
Okay.
Mike Wasmer has his hand up.
Hi, Vadilla. I was wondering why parks don't really fit into the definition of open space and why it was initially included.
Well, I'm not sure if parks was included in the definition. I mean, a park in quotes, not a public park, but a developer can build a park as part of, let's say it's a large apartment complex. They can make a playground and park area. But it's important that we distinguish between parks that are publicly accessible, that are typically owned by the city, versus this ordinance, which is about the amount of basically private open space that is set aside for the users of that property.
So the Livingston Street Park and the Grant Center on it, it was initially included in the open space, but it's being removed from it, or how is that going?
The Grant Center.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a nuance where
it's mapped in there as a
park
of the open space.
Right. So this is a nuance that's a little confusing, but I'll go into it since you raised the question. The Grant Center is Parks property, and it will remain Parks property. There's a proposal to expand the Grant Center that has been undergoing for multiple years. That plan is moving forward. What happened as part of this open space task force was that they decided that the largest part of the sub-districts of the River Arts District, which is called RAD, Open Space and Public Facilities, it makes up almost 40% of the RAD district. This open space task force decided that it should have a more restrictive zoning to ensure that that open space is protected in the future. And to do that, we decided to change the zoning in that district to not allow as much development and not allow as much even paving. In order to do that, we had to pull two sites out of that zoning district and to zone them differently because they already have much more building on them and impervious surface on them already. And those two projects are a fire station that we own and the Grant Center. So all that's happening with those projects is they're moving back to their previous zoning districts, which is residential, and they're going to continue to look and act the exact same way. Nothing's going to change. So it's just a change in order to accommodate the other changes that we want to make to better protect property in the River Arts District.
Thank you for that clarification. My one other concern is that, at the bottom of the document is to basically have a fee in lieu. So all of the fine points that you might create that would govern open space can easily be just completely ignored as long as there's money. And that's a concern to me because I don't know what definition that is. How much money, how much is it worth to cut down open space and whatnot? But
right.
Anyway, That's my other concern.
Yeah. So fee in lieu has been a part of this forever, and we're proposing that it continue to be on the books. The way it's calculated is by the value of the property. So let's just say, for simplicity, your property is worth $100,000, and the open space that you were going to have to provide is a tenth of that property. Then you would pay a tenth of the value of the property, $10,000, to the city. And then the city builds up this amount of money. We currently have a little bit over $200,000 as part of our fee in lieu. And our legal department has instructed us to not take any action on the way that fee in lieu is managed, because there's currently a lawsuit going on with another city. And we don't want to risk being sued by the same people who are suing that city. And instead, our legal department is suggesting that we wait until the lawsuits are settled, so that we better know what the courts allow for how cities can administer their open space fee in lieu funds. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thanks again.
Greta Bush, you have your hand up again?
Yeah, just looking at that sample that Elizabeth was asking about made me think of something. I seem to remember in the last presentation that having like water and sewer, or what do you call it? Like water.
Aquatic buffers?
Not aquatic buffers, but like drainage and stuff.
Wetlands?
Not wetlands, but
Stormwater.
managing. What's that?
Stormwater?
Stormwater. Thank you. Jeez. Having stormwater, adding extra stormwater to a plan could then reduce the required amount of open space. Is there not a way to encourage like permeable parking lots? Because I could see that parking lot in that example to be totally permeable and even include like a couple of tree islands. And then you've got kind of a combination of both, and you're not losing open space and you're gaining sewer.
Yes, that's a good point. So I think the short answer is yes. And the question is, what are the impacts? Currently, we have maximum parking standards that if you exceed them, you can add more parking, but at a certain point, you have to make it pervious. So that if somebody wants to put in much more parking than we believe is necessary, you have to do exactly what you're suggesting. If we want to move in a direction where we say that all of your parking must be pervious or drain into a bioswale or a rain garden, we can do that, but it comes again at a cost. And then we have to say, what is the cost? How does it affect the cost of housing and business impacts? Is it, and do we want to do that? We've met with the Stormwater Task Force in trying to meet the understanding that as the city grows, there are more stormwater impacts, and we have to mitigate those somehow. So this might be a great idea for how we do that. And that would probably be a separate conversation. Potentially we could link it to open space to say that if your parking is impervious, you're allowed. I don't know. I'm not sure how we would tie to open space. But
I'm kind of seeing it as a way to please both sides a little bit, where if you have more impervious parking, that could then count as open space because it is not a trade-off. Like you are helping with the stormwater situation, but you're not then getting a free ticket to have less open space because it's kind of, ticking the box, both boxes.
Mhm.
And then you can maybe even throw in some nice tree canopy among the parking, and it seems like everyone would get a little bit of what they're looking for.
Well, you'd be surprised. Some people will say that shouldn't be open space. That you can drain, you can capture stormwater and drain it on a parking field, but it's still a parking field. and a place that allows for cars to move around should not be counted. So I would guarantee you that we would have resistance to count that as open space. So
Yeah,
I think it
could
gets
see that.
tricky.
I think that my the way I'm looking at it as is that it would be a way to encourage people to go with pervious parking instead of impervious, because then they can count some of it as open space versus just having their impervious parking and then being allowed to have less open space because they diverted water somewhere, or I don't know. Just a
Yeah,
thought.
it's an interesting idea. I appreciate that, and I'm going to think about that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sharon,
Yeah,
Summerall, you have. I
Yeah,
got you.
my last comment. The sample you used, Vadilla, is that Kmart? Isn't that going to be the new Ingles that I saw at TRC? That I went through and they've done. I'm sorry. Isn't that the sample? Isn't that the new Ingles?
That's one of the images I use, and it may be. I mean, they have an application in for
Because
review.
I saw the stormwater plans for that and the landscape plan for that. And I think what's a misnomer for everybody is we have a state level of stormwater for that example that you use. They're putting in a huge catchment system. They're going to have tree islands. They're having street trees. They're having building impact trees. Actually, for the first time, they're really putting everything in there that they're required to put in. From my understanding on the stormwater and open space is they're wanting some additional requirements to add on to stormwater due to our topography. So that I think that example you used with the new Ingles coming in, it's completely not going to look like what it looks like now. Granted, it's going to be parking lot, but it's going to have parking lot trees, VUA trees. It's being landscaped out, and it's going to do a job and not look like it does now on that big waste of a Kmart parking lot. So the thing is that we do have stormwater enforcement in place. It's just not as good as the city would like to see due to our topography. I'm all for increasing stormwater, but I believe that we've got to avoid this black and white issue that it's all or nothing. I believe we need open space to be more equitable for the neighborhoods. I think it's a good job for our large developments. It's just going to impact our neighborhoods a lot more than all of us realize. And that's my last comment on that.
Okay, and I'll just respond. Any one-off, may be a one-off, and you're suggesting that the site on Patton Avenue, the Kmart, as it's proposed, may come in with stormwater. What we're integrating in this code is important because currently state statute does not require infill projects like that Kmart or say the Innsbruck Mall to capture any stormwater on their site if they have a plan that increases perviousness. So the Innsbruck Mall could plant literally one tree, and because of that and because of state law, they're not required. So this is a little bit in the weeds, but just to highlight, there may be exceptions, and those exceptions are great. If somebody like Ingles chooses to integrate stormwater, that's good for the city, and yes, we should applaud them. But we need to codify this to ensure that other large sites do that, because many sites, if they're not required to, they won't. If it was the same with landscaping standards, before we had landscaping standards, you can drive through many parking lots still in Asheville or other places. They don't have any trees. They didn't start making trees because they were great stewards. They started planting trees because it became a standard that was codified, and that's what we're trying to do. And we're doing it through open space because state statute prohibits us from doing it through stormwater. And I know that's a bunch of
it's not for me, Vadilla, because I'm on TRC and I watch it. The only time that you can do that mass amount of is in a B1 condition in a CZ, and using Innsbruck, which is going to be an urban center if it doesn't get sued out of its way. So I can go back and forth with you on this and say that the city does its darndest to make stormwater work, and developers want to develop are doing, and we're not having this plethora of horrible builders coming in and not putting in the stormwater that's required. The city wants to tighten up. I'm all for that, but it's not that bleak example that I feel that you used. And you and I could go back and forth on this, and I don't think we need to waste any more of next time on this.
Well, Vadilla, I appreciate that you have come and given this some insight on what you're doing. I have a concern only because I live in a community where we see we're impacted by what you would call affordable housing, fair housing, open spaces being closed up with people with private property, developers doing things. I would just ask that you would put your email address in the chat or somewhere for people if they need it to, if they don't have it. So if they have other questions that they want to ask you, and I will be getting in contact with you about some things that I really want to, really want to talk about further as far as neighborhood and community. So we thank you so much for coming this evening.
Thank you for your time.
hmm Let's move on to the next thing, and that is in our new business. I just want to take a few minutes to talk about the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, and I want to talk about the fact that neighborhood is first, and we're advisory committee. What I want to do for the next couple of months is that I would ask that each of you that represent the zip codes that you represent, the areas where you live, find out if you have a community association meeting and at least attend one so we can kind of give them some input on what's going on. You can kind of give them a briefing of open spaces. You can kind of like give them some updates on some things that may be going to come through the city that they may have missed because everybody's not on the website. So that is what I want to encourage each one of us, myself included, for neighborhoods, or if I attend others. I would also like for you to attend the city council meetings virtually if you possibly can, so that we can, that's what we do. We're a neighborhood advisory committee. And we advise, we listen, we communicate, and we go back and tell our neighborhoods, because that's what's getting lost right now. They have no idea what open spaces are. They have no idea what's coming next. So it's up to us to make sure that we get that information out to them. So that was just briefly what I wanted to say. If anybody had any comment or about that, you can speak up at this time. Okay. Okay, Dawa.
I did want to not, I didn't want to, there we go. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. I did, as everybody's thinking about everything you just shared, Chairwoman Mays, I did want to share with you all that we've got resources such as the neighborhood news that can be a good tool as you're going out into community and helping your neighbors have a greater understanding or access to things that are happening in the city. And in these coming months, I too want to explore what additional resources would be helpful for you all as you continue to do that. So I just wanted to put that out there for everyone to think about as we move forward, as you all move forward with that effort, that our department is definitely interested in creating the tools that work for our community. And I think we've got a great opportunity in starting with you all as you go out and share information.
Sharon Summerall, you have something?
Yes, I do, which brings me up to, I got 2 emails. I never get any emails regarding the neighborhood news and updates, but there's a article there on the city of Asheville addresses homelessness on many fronts, which is a very touchy issue for all of us everywhere. And I do believe that there were some points in that article that bordered on the political. and made comments that weren't necessarily, well, they weren't the comments that people that peppered me with why was this said, and where was the documentation to back this up, other than just to have someone say something because they felt like they needed to say it. So what I was going to say is that if we could stick with facts as opposed to opinions on this, because I don't know, as a person on NAC, they were coming to me because they thought maybe I could say something or do something, which I can't. I can just have an opinion like everybody else. But I do believe that some of these statements may have been correct for the person that was writing them, but not correct in necessarily a statement of truth. Does that make sense to you, Bobetta, and you, Dawa?
It makes sense to me, but I don't know. I did read the article and I did read about homelessness, but I also had gotten something from next door where I think that someone had interpreted the whole, it was all together. It was not factual. The statements that had been made about not feeding the homelessness. Is that what you're talking about? The
Well, I'm
homeless?
talking about homeless people are not the problem. Homelessness is the problem. Well, that's just that's an opinion, you know.
Right.
And that's, I mean, we can all debate that ad nauseum forever and ever. But in order for the city of Asheville to address these issues, there were some quotes also. Homelessness is a solvable problem. Well, there's a great article in the Wall Street Journal that came out yesterday, front page. It's great. It talks about
I
what
saw it.
states and cities are doing. It's endemic, not to only us, to everybody everywhere. And we all have got an opinion on it. So what I'm saying is, if we're going to address an opinion, then we need to say it's an opinion, and not say that homelessness is a solvable issue. Great minds have not solved it. I don't see us in Asheville being able to solve this. And there was some statements made on the percentage of people that had homes in the Ramada. Well, we've got direct quotes of that there's not. The people that were had gotten jobs, that is not a correct amount of the people that have gotten jobs, and there's emails out that prove that it's different. So what I'm saying is, if we're going to hit an issue like this, there was stuff for businesses. I manage a shopping center. This is something I deal with all the time in my shopping center. I've broken down all week for homeless camps. So I understand the issue and I understand what's going on. I've just got a couple of emails from people going, why is the city making statements that they think that they can solve homelessness, and homeless people are not the problem? Well, some of them are, some of them are not. It depends on who's homeless, like anything, and the situation. So we've got to be careful of what we put out to the community right now, I believe, especially in times that are so many diverse opinions and so much going on, that I really think we need to be more mindful.
Okay, so I will say this. I read the article and I've seen the Wall Street article. And I think that NAC's position right now is not that. That would be something with the city, and I don't know who put out the newsletter, but I think that would be a separate conversation for either to talk to Darrell Hitch or Brenda Mills, and maybe just shoot them emails about those concerns, and they can get back to you, because that's really an area that NAC is not really. It would not reflect on us, because it's an opinion about a citywide thing and not about a neighborhood or a community thing. And that way, if it is, it would go back to the city and not NAC. Does that make sense?
No, well, because it's called Neighborhood News and Updates.
Yeah, but it still
And
didn't come from us. It
No,
didn't
it
come
came from the
us.
city, and we're the
Yeah.
neighborhood advisory committee. So
Sure.
that's why I got 2 emails, and I thought, well, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I'll just jump in and say that definitely Chairwoman Hayes the role of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee is to provide policy advice to council. That's why the committee exists. Absolutely. And I will open an invitation if you all have great connections in the community, and I think that is probably what's driven you to serve on the committee. So in a separate arm of this, I am always happy for you to share any reactions that you have to communication pieces that go out. And the neighborhood news draws from the city's overall communication program. So it wasn't written specifically just for the neighborhood news, but has been distributed widely and was reflected from the city manager's presentation on homelessness that happened the week before. So all of this input helps us hone our communication so it's accessible for all people, and that's our goal at the end. So anytime in a separate arm, if you ever want to reach out to me directly, I'm happy to take that feedback and share it across the organization so we can keep improving.
Thank you.
Greta Bush?
Hi there. Thanks, Babette. I'm a couple conversations behind now, but I just wanted to make a comment in response to your comment, Babette, about members going and educating our neighboring associations. I just wanted to support that because that is the whole reason we spent 4 or 5 months trying to add to our purpose. Beyond just advising city council, we are also here to educate and support neighborhoods. So that was something that I apparently had to fight very hard for to get put in there because it's something that we do anyway, but now it's part of our purpose. So happy about that.
Thank you. Do we have any updates from other, like Sharon, the commission that you're on, and other things that you're on? Any committees?
No, other than open space, I pretty well worn everybody out with my open space stuff.
No, you didn't want us. I mean, it was good information. It was good information. I thought it was, it's something that's true to your heart. That's a passion of yours, and I understand that. And so you didn't. So if you just wanted to give us a brief synopsis, maybe, and
Well,
then
yeah, I would. In response to Stacy, he's correct. Stacy has not come out with a position, but from what I understand, the position is going to be neutral as far as Urban Forestry Commission's position on as they're concerned about the green space. And we've got a tree protection canopy amendment, but as JP said, everything can be fee and lieu out of. So in your neighborhood, you can fee and lieu out of open space, and you can fee and lieu out of your trees. And the examples that he used were neighborhoods were in West Asheville. And again, I wish that if we were going to do open space, we could do, the city likes to do one size fits all. If we could do one for the neighborhoods and one for the commercial, I think that would be what we actually need. And for some reason, we don't like doing that as a city. We don't like making it complicated for the developers, and so it will come back. It's probably not going to go until March. So I think all of us, if we're going to have another opinion on open space, I don't know how we're going to go about doing that other than send emails to Vadilla, or if you want another side of it, send an email to me. I'm trying to be as fair as I can without always arguing that point with Vadilla. But I find there's a lot of give and take in this. And so there's a lot of information that needs to be called out, and I'd be more than willing to answer any of your questions that you have to Vadilla, send to me, and I may be in complete agreement or I may not with your questions.
Well, I agree, and I think that we will probably have to take time and maybe with our agendas and things that we do to really take more time so that we can have a better understanding instead of being pushed and rushed, that we can actually say, okay, we've got this information and maybe we have something that every member could have that they can look over so
Right.
that by the time we sit down to talk about it, we would have a better understanding of what it is. Because a lot of pieces to this I did not know because I don't serve on that board, so I'm learning. So I think that would help all of us because we're talking about neighborhoods. I think about the people, the Latinx community that lives the Emma. They have they live in trailers. They own their trailers, but they don't own the land, and they're really concerned about the fact that maybe the person that owns the property will decide that he could make more money and he'll sell it and then they don't have anywhere to go. So I think that's a neighborhood issue that's impacted by the new Kmart. And so if we got some things that, because a lot of stuff goes over my head sometimes because I'm not familiar with it. But I think if we take more time sometimes with our meetings to do that, it would be good. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I
Yeah, and we do
appreciate
have
that.
more time now. And also, I'm going to take it to Easton Valley again. When I brought it to Easton Valley before, because as we all know now, it's a lot to swallow and to get everybody's attention to start over. But now Easton Valley is starting to pay attention as some of these older homes that are on large properties are being sold and divided up. Now I can get everybody's attention more so than I did a year ago when I first brought this up, when Renee said, Sharon, we can't think about that right now. And I think now at my next meeting with Easton Valley that I can bring it and say, okay, we really need to concentrate on this because once it goes into effect, it's very hard to back something out.
Right, right.
So,
And
so thank you
Renee and I
all.
are very good friends, and we serve on
On the
the EW.
legacy.
No, the EW Pearson
Oh
Collaborative
yeah,
with
right.
the Isaac Coleman. So I will talk to her too, and
Okay.
so can make that an issue. So when you go to her to talk to her, that'll happen. So let me go to Wendy
Thank you.
Hayner. Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Thank you very
Oh,
much, Babette. I wanted to say about the Grove Park Sunset Mountain Neighborhood Association. I am going to be put on their board, so I'm excited about that. And I also wanted to let everyone have an idea. I have reached out to DAWA and I said that I would like to have a list, which we'll get at the end of this week, as to whom received the grants, what neighborhoods received the grants. And I thought it would be beneficial as a part of our NAC group if each of us could write a congratulatory note to the people that have worked so hard to write these grants so that they know that we are supporting them in their neighborhoods, and an idea that we could all, transcend across the board to show our support for their grant writing. But to let them know who we are, and maybe in the note, we can talk about the open spaces and we can talk about the other. Please contact us if we can be of any help to you. These are the points that I would like to bring up in my note that I'm going to be sending out to the grantees. So I just wanted everybody to have an idea about that. Thank you.
well, I appreciate that. That's a good idea. Because I am the vice president of the Shallow Community Association, and I think we were one of the grantees. What I would say is, I think that you shot me an email because you wanted to know that information, but that was during the time that Jeremy was leaving, and I was trying to get with Dawa and Christmas and everything else. So we'll get on that because we need to let neighborhoods know, that we appreciate the work that they do. It's okay. I thank you for that, Greta Bush.
I don't know if this is too small for this conversation, but I thought it would be nice to share that a group of my neighbors and I are working to revive our association, which has been dormant for a number of years. We have a temporary board and we are facing a few more challenges than we anticipated. Currently working through some legal questions based on what our deeds might tell us that we need to be doing. The association is very, very old and we don't have a whole lot of clarity, but I just thought that it would be nice to share that, and hopefully we will be chugging along at a quicker pace in the coming months.
I love it. Sharon
What's
Summerall.
the name, Greta?
Oh, the Parkway Forest Neighborhood
Hey,
Association.
congratulations on doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It was-
really,
I had
really.
some neighbors step up to help, which was what I was
Good.
looking for. So
Nice job.
Yeah, really.
Dawa Hitch.
So that is me, and thank you, Sharon, for the catch of that very unfortunate typo in the minutes. And I did want to offer up, if I understood Sharon correctly, if you all want to go back and make a motion to adopt the minutes with the correction of adding not before going as low as 5 to 15%. Then you all could vote on that, and then we can just wrap up all that business from this meeting and move on. That's up to you all, but that is an option.
Well, that would be, can we someone make a motion with the corrections? Oh, Greta has her hand up.
I make a motion to approve the minutes with that edit of adding not before going as low as 5 to 15%.
And I need a
second it.
second. Oh, Sharon, you
Sharon
second.
Summerall seconds.
The motion has been made and has been seconded. I will now call out the names of the committee members for your vote. Greta Bush,
Aye.
JP. You still there, JP
Yes, I'm here. Aye.
Saraka? Okay. Mike Wassner,
Aye.
Peter Abzer,
Aye.
Sharon Summerall,
Aye.
Elizabeth Leica Swirly,
Aye.
and I. So they're all been moved and seconded and voted on, and it's been carried. The minutes will stand as they are with the approval.
Chairwoman Mays, I
correct?
think we missed Wendy Harper.
Did I miss somebody?
Or Wendy Hayner. I'm sorry, Wendy.
Miss Wendy Hayner. Oh, I'm sorry. Miss Wendy Hayner.
Aye.
Okay, is that all? I didn't miss anybody else. I'm just so excited about the fact that we're going to do things with the neighborhood. So excuse that. I'm just glad we had a good first meeting. So it's been moved in second and it's been approved by everyone, and so it stands that it is. So now we will look at the agenda for our next upcoming meeting. We will have to have an election of the vice chair and appointment of NAC. And I want you to think about that, whoever if you would want to nominate somebody to be the vice chair. And we will have that election next meeting. We need to have a multimodal transportation liaison. And we'll have updates, upcoming meetings on the board training winter, which was 2021. Technical review committee pending. Chris Collins about an alternate date. Our next regular meeting will be February the 28th, 2022, and it remains virtual. Check on the city's engagement hub for more directions on how to participate. Are there any more comments, questions? We all ready to go home? I think we've done well. It's 6:34. I've enjoyed this. I want to tell you that. I appreciate each one of you for being here. I appreciate the fact that because I am new and I was not really prepared for this, but I think we did well. I appreciate Dawa for everything that she has done. So I will now adjourn the meeting unless there are objections. So adjourned. Enjoy the rest of your evening.